So to start with a story is I thought I was autistic in high school. I went home. I remember it was a sophomore year in trig class. And I went home and I seriously asked my mom if I had autism because I knew from a social communication standpoint that there was something missing. Today, sometimes I think I still may have it in a positive way. You've heard me talk about PEDs, performance enhancing disabilities, but I literally learned and had to teach myself social skills and especially communication because it's not that I was your worst total socially um, irresponsible and socially unknowledgeable person ever. It was I knew that I was missing things. I was missing cues. I was missing, entendres and second level thinking amongst friends in the public high school setting that I was in. And so through a process of years, I taught myself communication to the point today where I can quickly and impactfully and meaningfully build a great relationship with a person nearly like this. And so, in response to a question from Compass member and brother Morris Stepker, here's your answer. So the way really to break down, if I had to break down building a relationship into a formula, because right, that previous version of Will thought about things in terms of x plus y equals z, and a lot of that. And as you go through the world, you may start there, and you can still break a lot down of it, but recognize too that it's not just black and white. There's a lot of gray in between. You have to use nuance, and that's part of this whole. I'll give you a formula, but recognize there's nuance, and I'll add in details where it's like, okay, we're going to be flexible here. We're going to understand, and it's not just you say this, you get this in response, you answer, right? There's so many different variables to go off of. But the general process that I go through in a public setting or in a social media, digital setting, in building relationships with people is this. Obviously, one thing to really take in consideration is the building of a relationship and the perception of self, both you and them, starts before the hello is even said. And I'm not even talking about basically your body language. What I'm talking about is your presentation. So if it's in a digital setting, right, they probably had an opportunity to check out your whole social media page, which is why I talk about optimizing Instagram and sharing more and being more authentic to yourself, etc. But that also goes for your personal presentation when you're meeting people in person, right? And I can even talk about times where I was out of alignment and had changes. One example is actually between my first and second year of university, where literally my first year, I was out of college and out of high school, sorry, American high school. And yeah, I was literally like 18 years old, 19 years old maybe, and didn't know much and was barely even, like, hadn't even entered the personal development realm yet, to where I played basketball in high school and I did well academically. But beyond travel, I hadn't really developed myself a ton otherwise. I had interests and, uh, I liked different things. But in terms of like a personal style and presentation on that side, like I was one of the first guys in my high school to wear Supreme because I made money reselling sneakers and reselling streetwear and stuff like that. So when I came into university, I was literally wearing like a ton of Thrasher gear, some Supreme stuff, etc. That whole that kind of vibe. But between my first and second year of uni, what I realized is I wanted to be seen like that presentation, persona, and style didn't match the people that I wanted to be working with and even like the vision of the future I had for myself, right? So I switched from wearing all Thrasher and skater stuff and even stuff that made me look like a stoner, even though I've never smoked, to a much more, yeah, it was still college preppy a bit, but a much more professional thing that I knew others, both my age and older successful businessmen, would be impressed by and was a more impressionable look. So what that looked like for me was a bunch of Ralph Lauren clothing, things along those lines, where we're looking elegant. A lot of what you see, the old money aesthetics today, was kind of in that similar vein, and I'll still wear a lot of that today in a more mature way. And so that's the physical presentation side of things. And beyond that, I mean, y'all see me right now. I'm not the most jacked guy in the world. Certainly, that is something every day we're working towards in terms of diet, to working out, steps, and more. So y'all are going to have the privilege and be fortunate to see the process, right? That you guys can see me grow and develop and look better physically, so you can do the same yourself. So you'll have that proof of concept there as well. But yeah, like I said, that's another thing. And you can even think there's a difference between when you meet somebody who's tall and athletic and lean, mean, strong, etc., and also, right, confident body position, well spoken. You can people have a presence and an aura, right? You can develop these things, and these all contribute towards the interaction and towards building a relationship before you even shake hands and say hello. And so on that next point, in regards to that shaking hands, because especially if you're talking to a variety of people, there's a ton of different things in terms of people from the age of 13 to 40, right? Where a lot of people will go for the dap up. The professional way, is to do the handshake, meet them even. There's the kind of dap, and then I can't do that with myself, but right when you go for the dap up and kind of acknowledge them, the straight up hug. Really, what I recommend is kind of reading the situation and doing as much research as you can about the person. But if you're unable to, for me, I go to the firm handshake, which is not a boom, let me shake your hand a lot. It's okay, we're gonna shake firmly. It's not when you're a child, it's a little bit different, right? You want to show off and follow what your dad tells you, etc. But it's a firm handshake, so you meet them there. You don't need to squeeze their hand to death, but you give them a firm handshake. You say, "Hey, I'm Will. What's your name?" And so, from that standpoint, once that connection is established, or for some guys it might be one of these, or right, if it's obviously a bit more of a loose, casual, relaxed setting where you can tell based on the vibe that these people are, they're dressed street or whatever, they're way more of a dap up type of crowd. You can do that. Also, it helps to watch others. If you're with multiple individuals, you can check and see, hey, this guy just did a dap up. This guy did a dap up. Okay, I'm probably going to go for the dap up, right? So that's things. But bottom line, be strong and secure and confident in what you're doing. And if you mess it up, also, it's not a big deal. Like, no stress whatsoever. And then that's going to carry through. Then, once we move past that initial interaction, what you're going to do is we flip into the how to win friends and influence people, basically. And if you haven't read that book, 1000% you should read that. It's either Dale Carnegie or Napoleon Hill. I think it's Dale Carnegie. Definitely check it out. Listen to the directions in the beginning of the book. I'll do a book review on it, actually. And I recommend rereading it multiple times because that is ultimately the cheat code source document for building relationships and more. But one thing specifically that book talks about is be interested, not interesting. And a really interesting point about that, though, is in that regard, people will tend to think a good conversationalist is someone who, right, yaps a lot and provides value, all these kind of things. When in fact, most often, if someone calls you a great conversationalist, you're probably a great listener, right? Because they felt heard, which so many people are just yearning to be heard because so many people do fail to listen, is they felt heard and you were able to interact and stimulate the conversation in meaningful ways. Probably saying, like I said, way less words than you might think is actually necessary. And so on that point, I am interested in the other person. Generally, what I'm searching for or what my process may be, it's a questioning process. You can think of it as like the most friendly interview you ever had, right? You're not, there's a light over here, I could grab it, and you're not like, who are you, where are you from, etc., right? It's more of a, hey man, like I want to hear this person's story. So what's your name, where are you from, how'd you get to like, what do you do? Oh, okay, you do this. How'd you get there? Like, what was that process like? Right. And I'm more or less understanding their story and hearing here. And really, things that I'm keying in for are relatable points where possibly, this guy had a similar life experience, or we have a shared interest in watches or travel or something along those lines, because I want to make basically as many shared points, right, to build a relationship as I can. Points of correlation, we can call them. Because, right, people are interested and want to hang out with people who are like-minded, who have similar interests. So when you establish that, each one of those is like a building block for the relationship. And especially here, I'm paying careful attention and making sure I'm listening so that I can also remember things. That's throughout this whole conversation. It should be your goal to remember and know all these things. If you've ever studied sales, you know where one effective tactic in sales is to repeat what the person you're selling to says, right? Mirroring or other tactics like that. The same thing can apply for a conversation. And, right, I'm not, for all this, I've called it a formula. This is, you want to be in a genuine, authentic way. It's not just following formula. That's not going to build a meaningful relationship. But you're using these things as tools to help you navigate the conversation and the building process of the relationship more effectively, right? So actually, Morris, once again, shout out to you. I'm gonna use our first uh, interaction as an example, where Morris and I met first in a Zoom call, right? And in that Zoom call, I basically ran through the questions. How are you doing? Obviously, where are you from? Oh, what do you do? And Morris at the time had a couple different businesses. One, I believe, was helping farmers markets in Netherlands and by the way, we met like 2 years ago or more. But it was helping farmers markets in Netherlands go direct, or farmers rather, sell directly to markets or sell directly to consumers, so they avoided all the painful regulation and whatnot that it was going through Netherlands, as well as he worked with a chauffeur service for high profile high profile luxury clientele, as well as within the racing circuit and faster things, where he was helping to transport cars or working with F1 teams, etc. And so right off the bat, I'm Will Coomer from Ohio. I love speed. I love luxury items and style in that way and cool design. And I'm from Ohio baseline. You know, my family has a farm. I love that, connecting that. And that's a really, really noble mission, is to help farmers. So we had bang, 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 3 immediate points of connection. And this guy, turns out is the same age as me, and he's doing all these incredible things. And I'm like, wow, this is just incredible. And so I'm asking him because I am, fortunately, we had so many different like points of like, I'm just so interested in this myself, not even like building, but it's like, I wanted to hear more. How did he build this? What did you do here? Why did you do this? It's so cool, right? And so we built that in person. We built that, over Zoom. And I was like, I also in my mind knew that I was traveling. And one tool you can use, especially building relationships with people, is something called future projecting, where even if you're meeting somebody for the first time, especially if you see commonality or shared interest and you want to build a relationship, is you project, you say things that, oh, possibly we could do together in the future. So I knew that I wanted to travel and hit Europe, all over Europe, and he was in Netherlands, and Amsterdam, is a popular location. So I said, bro, like if I'm in Amsterdam, I'm planning to be in Europe next summer. Let's link up, and I don't care. We can just go for a coffee. Let's do whatever. And frankly, we might have had a little bit of limited interaction back and forth. That's always, if you see people, happy birthdays, if you see people posting things on stories, please support them. Like those are all great ways to, once the conversation has ended, those are great ways to more or less keep the relationship going. Fix the mic here, kids. And is to keep the relationship going. But fast forward a year later, and I'm in Amsterdam, and actually, I think he saw, before I'd even thought to reach out to him, he saw me post a story on Amsterdam. I was like, Will, I'm here, bro. Or he was just outside it. And we met in person a year later and strengthened the relationship even more, right? That was where, okay, I know a bit about him. He knows a bit about me, but we're going to go even deeper. Like, what's going on with you? What's your vision for the future? And this could all happen in that first conversation or first time in person as well, right? This is 2 separate occasions. This can all happen in an extended setting. And it's like, okay, what's your vision? What are you looking to do? Like all these kind of things. And by asking these questions, he's sharing what he's passionate about, but I'm also investing into him because I'm interested and I care about this. And everybody wants to talk about what they're most passionate about, right? So those questions like, what are your vision? What are the goals? Are always pretty good. And if they don't, right, like I said, we're looking for points that someone is talking really passionately about or for points of shared interest. If you're not reaching that, you can always keep asking different questions. So if those first two questions regarding vision or goals, maybe kind of flat, you can always flop. You can always ask someone directly, what are you most passionate about right now, right? And like I said, people want to talk about that. And so that's a great way to do that. And so you know their story, you know what they want their future to be. And as you're going through this, you're investing in this person, and that should be your goal. It's not networking, it's building meaningful relationships. That's the code. That is the way, is to build meaningful relationships. Screw your networking. And so to continue here, remember you're future projecting things, etc., and you're asking their vision. What I'm also looking for throughout this whole conversation is ways I can help them. I know I said kind of, talk trash about the whole like provide value before because a lot of people do it wrong, but I am always open-minded on how can I help this person, especially if we're aligned and like-minded, right? Because if I help more people do what they're passionate about and with their good missions, that's going to make the world a better place, bottom line, right? And those, even like, I'm not thinking about ROIs, but if they make the world a better place, that makes the world better for me too, right? If they're more enjoyable, then okay, hey, maybe we do some cool things in the future. And so throughout this whole process, whether it be passions, goals, interests, whatsoever, even just an introduction to another person, I am always listening for ways that I can help them. So, though I may not immediately be able to think of an example with Morris, for others, like I said, that may be, oh, this guy wants to get into this area of business. You know someone who's already done that successfully. All right, hey, I have my friend Johnny. Let me connect you, Morris, with Johnny. Right? Okay, boom, we've already helped them. Oh, maybe they're interested in meditation. You don't have to add another hour to the call, but you can say, bro, I've been meditating for more than 10 years. I'm more than happy to go in depth on whatever you need to answer any questions there. Why don't we set up a call or set up a meeting at the coffee shop, whatever, in the future, and we'll take half an hour, we'll take an hour, and I can help you however you need. Maybe they're interested in this or have this. If you know something that's meaningful and helpful and has helped you, help them, right? And they also have to be open to receiving, but generally, especially if you've done a good job at building the meaningful side of the relationship and sharing your interest and also being an interesting person too, they will be more than happy to accept it, especially if it is valuable, helpful information. And I know, right? I've focused on the other person this whole time. You're like, but what if they ask me a question? That is one other thing that is truly helpful. And like I said, it's not one of my goals. It's not like, oh my gosh, like this is my ultimate goal. I have to stick to this. But something I have in mind is because I do care about the other person and I want to help them as much as possible, is it's not really a goal of mine to talk about myself a ton. You know, maybe if you're pitching your product or your company, that may be something that is more necessary to talk about. Excuse me, fixing this. Thank you for the patience, individuals. I'm gonna put the pin here. Jake has no idea what's going on, but we're making it work. Check, check, we're good. But my point is here is it is cool to talk about yourself too. Generally, if somebody asks me, "Oh, Will, like, bro, like you've talked," because that is the polite and respectful thing to do. Is I've talked for so long. Like, I would love to know about you because people do, especially if you've invested your time into them. They also generally, if you're a cool guy and there's a reason you met, as almost always there is, they want a chance to invest in you and to learn more about you, and so you give them that. But be mindful and respectful here of time, right? I always strive to be the most genuine I find authentic I can. So I can have a tendency to yap, but right, my goal is to not yap too much. It's to tell my story and be in a meaningful and concise way, right? So ways to do that are to be vulnerable in terms of being genuine and open about experiences, about what you're going through. You don't have to pour your heart out and cry, but in a meaningful manner, you can talk about through my business, like one thing for y'all. You guys know I have congruency and compass. Congruency, like a lot of the reason I created congruency was because both of my grandmothers died. I went from 185 to 245 and more and went into the worst trenches, one of the worst trenches of my life where I was going to kill myself, right? And I can share that just like I did there in a really short thing, and this is why I started Congruency. And now, because I've shared this and been vulnerable about and a bit more authentic than maybe the average person, they're like, whoa, this guy's comfortable with me. He's honest. And it is true. I am comfortable, right? Because those, like, you're building trust and building a relationship by exchanging more about yourself. And, right, part of that is intimacy. And I'm not talking about intimacy in the bedroom, I'm talking about intimacy with another person. One of my favorite definitions of intimacy and why it's important is it's into me see, right? IN-TO-ME-CSEE, right? People want to feel connected to one another, and you do that by building intimacy. So throughout this whole process, right, you're getting more intimate with them by them sharing and you asking meaningful questions from a caring disposition, as well as you're doing the same, vice versa, right? It is an exchange of love and honesty and character, right? And so doing all that in a meaningful way, and in way of integrity, right? If they're sharing deep details, that's for this conversation. That's for you and too. You're caring about them. You're helping them any way you can, but you're also not yapping to everybody else about it. And so through that process, these are all tools that I use to build meaningful relationships, right? And then, like I said, you kind of heard the example of Morris and I, um, talking and meeting online and then on a Zoom call. Then we met a year later in the Netherlands. And then actually, again, we met a year later in Dubai when I was hosting Luke Davis. Shout out, brother Luke. Um, Helping Luke run his Dubai mastermind. We met there again and actually got an opportunity to work together where he supplied the supercars and everything there. And we went camel riding and more. And so Morris and I met again and ended up doing business together, right? So that's the way to keep it going is future projecting is to remember. And so if you're, maybe for whatever reason, I have an ability to remember these things. If that's not you, people used to keep a Rolodex. You can look up what a Rolodex is. It's fun, but you can keep a typed up note on your phone about each person. Put in their Instagram link immediately after you have a conversation. Put in details to know things that may be helpful for the future, and then keep up with them through socials, right? Um, Especially if you future project or see more, right? If this is a relationship that you want to build into a meaningful friendship, that's the way to do it. You help them, you support them, etc. And those are all great ways to do that. Even if somebody pops in your mind, hey, bro, I was thinking about you. How are things going? Something like that, simple, right? And some people are super busy. It's no worries if they don't respond. You can even say, I know you're busy. You have a packed schedule. No pressure whatsoever. If you're good, is there anything I can help you with? Is there anything that's really been bothering you? Right. And this is all a genuine, meaningful way. I'm not trying to drain people of value or drain things. There are value exchanges without a doubt. But, right, I'm looking to help build meaningful relationships. And that's really how I do it and how you can do it too. So, thanks for watching. Hit me with comments or questions in the DMs. If you want to learn more, DM me on Instagram. I'm happy to answer any questions. And see y'all next time. Love. Blessings.